I think the worst mistake that I've seen made, and I've made myself, is just using SKO as just that moment in time when you blast 150 slides to the sales team saying, here we go, this is the new product, this is the new value prop, just go at it. Mm-hmm. So we are using SKO more as a way to get people engaged, and it's a very collaborative couple of days. Okay. So there's not that much dev by PowerPoint where we just push out the new training. It's actually leveraging either customers coming on site to share their stories, or reps sharing their wins or their losses. So a lot of collaborative sessions that happen during SKO. So what this means is a lot of the practical trainings around new pricing, new product actually happens before that.
I'm Devin Reed.
And I'm Sheena Badani.
And you're watching Reveal, the Revenue Intelligence podcast powered by Gong.
Keep watching here to see the full interview. Or if you like to listen to podcasts on the go, check out the links in the description below.
And if you like what you hear, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Or all of them. Why not? And while you're there, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. We personally read every single one, and I think I speak for both of us when I say they mean the world to us.
Could not agree more, Devin. Now, without further ado, here's the episode you've been waiting for.
Marjorie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We always love to start by hearing how people start their day. So I'd love to know what your go-to morning routine is.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a very early bird. I wake up around 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Because I need my time to kind of think and plan the day. So I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and then I have that weird routine where I dry my hair for about 45 minutes. But the point is not to dry my hair. My point is looking at my calendar while I do dry my hair and kind of plan for the day. And then I drive to work, and that time then is just to think about what's on my calendar and kind of thinking about what some of the key things I want to accomplish during the day. So I guess the key point of my morning routine is the drying the hair while looking at my calendar.
Multitasking.
Yeah. Multitasking, yes.
You're up and multitasking before I'm up, so that is impressive. Well, you're the SVP of Global Sales at HackerOne. Can you help folks who maybe don't know what HackerOne is? Just a quick elevator pitch of what you guys are all about.
Sure. So I am very proud of working for HackerOne because it's one of those rare companies that manage to match humans with software and systems. Mm-hmm. So basically, we have a community of 600,000 hackers that are there to find security vulnerabilities in software.
Got it.
So for the first time, the man may be beating the machine, because the beauty of hacker-powered security is finding vulnerabilities with humans through software.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's very interesting. How would you describe your role as the SVP of sales, as the head of sales there?
Yeah, so I've been at HackerOne for 4 years, and it almost feels like every year I fire myself and rehire myself for a different role. So I'll speak about my role in the coming 12 months, I guess. Mm-hmm. We've grown exponentially, so my role is first to really decide of a long-term strategy that's going to help us sustain our growth. Mm-hmm. And with that, it's also about hiring just amazing talent, so that what used to be a very small sales team becomes something larger, with great people that are going to be able to sustain our culture, our processes, and all of that. So strategy, and then hiring the right people, and then finally a lot of it is just also getting my hands dirty and participating into those large strategic deals that may kind of give great direction to our business in the long term. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
How large was the sales team when you started, and how large, I guess, will be by the end of this year?
Yeah, so when I started, there was 0 really sellers, or 1, should I say.
Oh, okay. You?
Oh, wow, yes. It was important for me this time around to start a sales team from ground zero, so I get to hopefully do right from the beginning. And today we have about 80 sellers globally, and we should be about 120 by the end of next year. So
Fantastic.
It's been a great journey over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
You said you really wanted to help start the sales team from the ground zero. What were some of the requirements that you had, or some of the things that you had learned from other teams that you had been a part of that you wanted to bring into the culture of your own sales org?
Yeah, I think in my past, you learn a lot as you go, and there's some great best practices learned along the way, and also some mistakes you learn along the way. So for me, the first big objective was to kind of have a vision of what the sales team would look like over time, what the processes would look like over time, and try to make some investment either in people, process, or systems sooner rather than later. So that was the first component. The other component was also making sure that we have our hiring profile quite nailed at the beginning. So the type of people you bring on today may be people that can help you scale the sales team over time. So having a good idea of the culture we want to create and therefore the type of people you want to bring in as early as possible. So some of those things were kind of important from the get-go. Having a consistent framework to create a common language between sales, marketing, and other functions is something I had seen done previously, probably too late. So we did that quite early at HackerOne, so that from the beginning, the voice of the customer and the prospect is core of our framework and the way we go to market, not only in sales, but across all very important departments at HackerOne.
That's awesome. Could you help to give a little bit of color when you identified those first reps that you hired? What were the qualities that you saw in them that helped you know that, okay, this is somebody that I could envision on my team today and in 4 years when we are an 80, 100% org?
Yeah, so I think what was very important to me is to make sure we were hiring people that were here not only to make money because it sells, but people that were here to really build a company. So company builders. So people that would have the endurance to see the ups and downs of an early stage startup. So making sure that we had folks that were hungry, driven, but most importantly, people that were very much mission driven, that believed into what we're going to be doing for the world. Our mission is to make the internet safer. So having sales reps that really would join us not only to sell and close deals, but really to bring the voice of the hackers to market. And I guess this has really helped us differentiate ourselves against our competition in the market, having reps that are really there to problem solve with our customers, creating a new industry, because hacker-powered security didn't really exist before HackerOne started the business. So a great balance between people striving to learn, being open to feedback, active listeners as far as the market is concerned, but also people looking for excellence in what they do every day. So a lot of those folks today over the last 4 years have been promoted to leadership or higher segments in the organization, and a lot of those folks were those initial folks that were so mission driven and wanted to contribute to do something kind of bigger than themselves, which can be rare in sales, because as you all know, sometimes salespeople are very coin operated, which is great, but if you match that to being mission driven and wanted to build a great company, I think you get magic at the end. So
that's amazing to hear. And I think also as you find those people who are bought in on the mission and you see that they are elevating through the ranks, it probably brings in more of those type of people, right? So it's kind of like the more that you put into it, the more that you get out in that regard.
It's incredible. And I think the challenge then becomes over time when you grow and there's just need for also more experience outside of the sales team. It's starting to then match those early riser in the team with folks that come from the outside. So we do spend a lot of time really documenting and communicating what our culture is, what is it that we're trying to accomplish, to also help others coming from the outside and still be kind of a united overall culture in sales and overall at the company level.
Got it. Well, I was going to say, I mean, besides closing Q4, which I imagine is taking at least 98% of your focus, today's podcast is probably 1%. What else are you working on maybe to wrap up this year, or perhaps what are you focusing on for 2020? Yeah,
actually, this year has felt quite different because our mission this year is to have comp plans out by January 1.
Sure, the team appreciates that.
The team is believing in our ability to get there. So we've been doing a lot of planning for the past, 90 days. So a lot lot of it with electing the right metrics that we want to go after, starting to think about ways to segment the team, thinking about rules of engagement. The company is now global. We have offices in Singapore and in Europe. So starting to think about how are we going to show presence to our customers across multiple regions. So a lot of it is really planning, metrics, comp plan, ROEs. And then as we go deeper into the enterprise, I think we are also evolving our ability to prioritize accounts we want to go after. So a lot of it has been building the fundamentals for account scoring and really deploying sales teams based on where our market potential is. So a lot of planning.
Yeah. Metrics are always something that I think can be an evil and a positive, right? Depending. So I'm curious if you're able to share what are some of the metrics that maybe you're changing from and moving towards, or at least why are you making some of these changes?
Yeah, I think over time everybody gets a little bit more intelligent about how they use metrics, and I maybe there's a secret sauce, but I think it's more of a continuous learning than kind of an ideal state. So we always start from the basic metrics of number of deals, ASP, number of accounts, targeted time to close and all of that by segment and by region. I think where a lot of the continuous learning is coming from is starting to understand where the pipeline is coming from, and how do we start having predictability in that conversion from pipeline to opportunities to deals based on different sources. So I think that's the area where this year we are doing a little bit more work, adding a lot of systems to help us get there. We are transitioning towards account-based marketing and selling. So I think with that, the type of metrics we look at are a little bit different. And then also there's a lot of reflecting back between the metrics we had planned for this year and where we landed, trying to understand how more predictable we can get over time. We've added a ton of tools at every step of the process to help us, again, I guess, get more visibility. But to your point, I think there's so much more data points we have today compared to what as sales leaders we may have had even just 5 years ago. Then the rule of the game is to then decide what metrics to use and when. We've spent a lot of time in the past 6 months to actually purposely decide that and guiding the sales managers on what data to look where and when, so that we don't get overwhelmed by that massive amount of data we get nowadays. So it's an elegant dance between using data but also being agile and changing how we use those metrics to drive decisions, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've heard, where it's using data to get as close to the right answer as you can, but then focus on being agile to continue to use data to iterate and get as close to that bullseye as you can. It sounds like HackerOne is a very data-oriented company. Has that always been the case since you were the first sales rep there, or has that something maybe that was picked up along the journey in the last couple of years?
I think we always we were always data-centric, but I think as we grow, the concept of predictability becomes more important. So also in the earlier days, we may have only supported small business and mid-market customers, where now we are supporting customers across all segments, across multiple regions. So in order for us to know where to invest, I guess the granularity in the data has become more important, and probably in the last couple of years. But that also comes with, again, investments in people and tools. We've added multiple layers in sales operations. So now there's also humans that can spend time looking at data to help us make that data more actionable. So,
absolutely.
What does that relationship look like between sales ops, you as a sales leader, the finance team and your CFO in terms of like determining what are the right set of metrics, looking at what's important, and then determining the next recommended steps on how to take the business forward based on some of those insights?
That's such a great question. And I think it has dramatically changed, and this year particularly, even more so. So the definitions and the choice of metrics was very much decided by sales and sales ops until very recently. but our finance team is really moving towards a revenue ops model where we're starting to really be very well supported by our finance team. So basically what this means is agreeing what are the core metrics we want to report on together with finance, and starting having finance being the one group that actually runs the analytics and pulls the data to give us that data and give it to the board. I think it's just wonderful to start having data and analytics being run out of sales, because it always felt kind of weird that we were the ones reporting on ourselves. So I think having the choice of the metrics, the definition of those metrics started to be run more on the finance side is helping us kind of create that additional layer of accountability towards meeting those metrics and evolving them.
So RevOps reports into the finance org.
That's exactly right. Sales Ops still is under sales and is probably supporting more the day-to-day of having dashboards by team and things like that.
Sure.
But really the core metrics that are metrics we want to report on company-wide or to the board is now under finance.
Interesting. It's interesting to see how different companies structure that and how sales ops and that transition to revenue ops, what it looks like and how different companies are taking that and making it real.
I think I never had really thought about it until really recently. I think that having kind of that neutral place to run sales analytics is great, because then you kind of eliminate the bias of having sales looking at its own kind of data. So I think it's a great change and shift.
Yeah, interesting.
So you've been a head of sales for some pretty complex go-to-market teams like SuccessFactors, right? And it was purchased by SAP, MongoDB, now HackerOne. I'm curious, what are some of the successful strategies that you've rolled out with these teams, and any stories are welcome?
Yeah, I think my biggest learning, I guess pride over the last few years is creating that common language or common framework between sales, marketing, customer success, product and engineering. I just think is absolutely game changing. So in the earlier days at HackerOne, we kind of we brought a third-party company to help us build that framework. We literally had all execs at HackerOne meeting in a room to discuss, okay, what are those value drivers that our customers have? What are some of those differentiators that make HackerOne unique? And from all those conversations, we then brought multiple people across the organization from marketing, CS, etc., and product in the room to really define what is that value framework. How is it that we want to go to market? Who is it that we're going to go after? With what messaging? And having that framework in the earlier days has really helped us to have the voice of the customers and the prospects embedded in everything that all departments do at any point in time. So when sales start talking about, we need more differentiation between this vendor and HackerOne, the language we use around those differentiators are language that all the teams understand. So that consistent framework, I think, has helped us really move faster in building a value prop and a go-to-market that's just resonate very much with our customers and prospects and help us just move extremely fast, which is good.
I bet. With 2020 around the corner, we're going to hit a lot of SKOs.
Yes.
Which means a lot of new differentiation talk tracks, new pitch decks, new demos. What are some of the tips you have for the sales leaders listening to make sure that those frameworks that you just discussed, right, that happened in the C-suite, make it all the way down to the frontline managers and the reps in the trenches? Yeah,
it's a great question. So I think what we've learned and what I've learned over the years, I guess, is the purpose of, I think, SKO is to bring the sales team together. And I think the worst mistake that I've seen made, and I've made myself, is just using SKO as just that moment in time where you blast 150 slides to the sales team saying, here we go, this is the new product, this is the new value prop, just go at it. So we are using SKO more as a way to get people engaged, and it's a very collaborative couple of days. Okay. So there's not that much dev by PowerPoint where we just push out the new training. It's actually leveraging either customers coming on site to share their stories, or reps sharing their wins or their losses. So a lot of collaborative sessions that happen during SKO. So what this means is a lot of the practical trainings around new pricing, new product actually happens before that.
Interesting.
So we have monthly enablement calls on top of our normal bootcamp. So we push a lot of the kind of, I would hate saying this, but boring content before SKO, and SKO then becomes an occasion to just talk live, having people sharing, having customers sharing, so that kind of SKO becomes the practice versus the theory. It helps us kind of have that content stick to do it this way.
Absolutely. As a rep in a previous life, definitely appreciate that, because there are those times where it's like 2 or 3 days of just pure PowerPoints, and you kind of go back to work on Monday and you're like, what are we supposed to focus on? Like, what was kind of the purpose behind all that?
Yes.
But it sounds like you guys are starting with a lot more vision and why to kind of supplement the training that happened the week prior. Yeah.
And I think what we are avoiding as well is just using SKO as a way to communicate everybody's plan for the year. So kind of picking those high value subjects as something to put in the agenda versus just having everybody present their plans, which after 3 hours of that, I think reps just want to go home. So.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite team building activities or supplemental things that you do at SKO that help to bring the team together?
A lot of it is always about, it's either about customers or it's about values and culture. So I think one of my favorite exercises over the past few years is when we literally asked people to gather in small groups and started to kind of describe what they would want the sales culture at HackerOne to be, and having kind of exercises where you put post-its on the wall with suggested kind of one-word ways to describe the culture, to engage discussions, and the output of that after, I think it's just an hour and a half, is for the groups to come together and kind of have an elevator pitch of what our sales culture is. So great way to get people to realize that we have a great culture, put it into words, and kind of realize that, oh my God, we've built something pretty special that now we can put words around, and it's then easier to describe to other new people that come to the team, or when we are in the hiring process, it's always nice to just being able to verbalize the coolness of the culture.
Yeah. Reflection is just as important, if not more, as continue to hit the gas pedal.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Go ahead, I think a lot of your early sales experience was leading inside sales, and that's what you did at Mongo when we were both there together. I'm curious, what was that transition like as you shifted from running inside sales to now all of sales? And how can folks that run inside sales best position themselves to, step into the role that you're in today? What are some of those differentiators that they can really hone in on?
It's a very good question. And I think for me, I kind of sold in the field earlier in my career, back in Europe at Oracle. So for me, it was more of a question of thinking back and kind of merging the experience in inside sales and the experience in the field from the past. I guess at the end, it all comes back to understanding what is your customer profile and understanding what the different steps in the sales process are. I think one of the great assets in inside sales is because you are dealing with a high volume of transactions. We have to kind of break down the process in a lot of different pieces to make it repeatable and scalable. At the end, you can do that in enterprise as well, and actually you need to do that in enterprise as well, breaking the steps of the sales process in multiple pieces. The only difference between inside and field, particularly in the enterprise, is that those processes are just way more complex. So you gain a lot of discipline in inside sales around understanding the sales process itself. Once you have that discipline, is kind of applying that to larger deals, more complex. So from a sales leadership perspective, I think the transition is actually not as brutal as it seems to be. So I think my biggest advice for people that are obsessed with, can I go into the field, because it's so different with inside sales, whether you're an IC or a sales leader, I think the key is always just to remember that those are humans, those are customers. It's about understanding their process. And once you have discipline in doing that, you can scale that across any type of segments.
Right. I love that, because like that ties back to, that these complex enterprise sales deals are not just an art. There is a science to it, and you can take the time and the energy and the effort to break it down, put frameworks around it, see the trends and the themes that you're seeing across the deal types. So I think like that mindset that you can bring from doing that in inside sales to that space is really relevant.
Yeah, I also think the world has changed. Like 10 years ago, when you were a field rep, you were on the road like 95% of the time. Bottom line is like a lot of the buyers, even in the enterprise today, don't necessarily want to meet face-to-face every day. They appreciate the flexibility to meet over video conferencing, on phone calls. So I think the line is now a little blurred. I think a lot of the field versus inside sales divisions are kind of becoming blurry, and reps at the end of the day are becoming more hybrid reps. At the end, to me, it's more about the segment and how you go to market in that segment versus inside versus field. I had a conversation with a rep literally on Friday about that, and we sell to security teams in larger organizations. Larger organizations may be HQ'd, let's say, in New York, but the security team is in San Francisco, for example. So the buying processes are very multi-threaded. So whatever happens, you're going to have people all over the country. So I think the ability to be agile and decide when to go on site versus when to deal with the sales process on the phone or on video call is an asset. So if you can sell on the phone, you can sell anywhere, anytime. Yeah.
Interesting, because I've heard other people say if you can sell in the field, you can sell anytime, any place.
I think it's so much. I think a lot of the best enterprise sellers I've seen in my career came from inside sales. You're able to develop a lot of emotional intelligence by listening to people, I think, more than if you can combine being able to meet and be great on site with the ability to pick up on cues on the phone. I think magic happens there. So,
absolutely. Along those lines, along those lines, what's your coaching style when it comes to developing? Because I imagine, your inside sales reps, probably a different type of demographic. Maybe they learn differently, and they probably have different needs than your 20 plus, years experience people in the field. So I'm curious, if and how you differentiate your coaching and what that style is.
Yes, you definitely need to adjust it for sure. But I guess the way I would answer the question relate back to the type of people you hire. So whether we hire people that are in their second year of selling or people that have 20 years of selling, we always look for people that are eager to learn and also eager to give and receive feedback. So even if we hire veteran in sales, at the end of the day, they still need to learn the product. They still need to learn the value framework we use. So it's just the coaching is going to be different because you may just provide feedback and give feedback on different things, but we only hire people that want to get better and that can learn. So from that, if you have that as the core, I think the coaching becomes more on the basics with the folks that are a little bit earlier in their career. So literally the components of selling is what you're teaching the reps, versus for the reps that are a little bit more experienced, you're trying to coach them on how to unlock their deals. We have a culture with everybody across the sales team where we do a phone call or an on-site. There's always 5 minutes of debrief where we ask the reps, what are 2 things you think you did well, 2 things you think you did better. And this is true for junior reps as much as reps that have more tenure. So the culture of feedback is just here every single day, which I think people that have stopped learning at the end, it's kind of be a little bit depressing. So we try to hire people that still have that in their bellies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I see that theme of reflection coming back in there again. So you're working on a deal, take that time to step back and see how did it go.
It's even more important for us because we are building a new industry. So it's not like we're asking people to sell something that they've sold before. So it's very important to keep an open eye and open ears on what the market is telling us. So I think there's not only the coaching side, but making sure the reps are actually curious enough, regardless of their levels, to understand what works and what doesn't, because nobody has done hacker-powered security before.
Sure.
So we also take that feedback from their side to enrich our messaging, our go-to-market, etc. Yeah.
And probably even into product and engineering as well.
Yeah, all the way to marketing and then customer success as well on the delivery side.
Sure.
Yeah.
What are some of the unanswered questions that you're currently contemplating and trying to figure out at HackerOne today that you can tell us about?
Yeah. The ones I can share, it's I think I don't know if any company has really nailed this or not, but the understanding where the pipeline is coming from and influence of pipeline over time, so marketing attribution versus outbound, we still struggle to kind of measure if we put X dollars in marketing, what's the output? If we put X dollars in sales development, what's the output? Having kind of a predictable way to invest, to know what comes out of kind of our investments from a marketing perspective is definitely one that's still a kind of a little bit of an unanswered question. And then the other one is we've been on a journey to score accounts so that we can help our enterprise sellers focus on the right accounts. We are starting to bring a lot of different attributes in that account scoring, but I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions on is this really accurate, or how can we definitely make sure we focus on the right accounts at the right time? So a lot of unanswered questions about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the nuances of an enterprise, complex sales cycle make that lead scoring even more challenging, right? Because there's, this one account, or this one lead should definitely be qualified for these reasons, but for some reason that same attribute in a different account doesn't quite work. So
I am just curious. So your business is pretty interesting to me. So I'm curious, like the hackers that you find. So it's almost like a marketplace of hackers that are now going out and figuring out is the software secure enough where there are holes that other actual hackers can poke into.
Yes.
Do you have any interesting stories of like hackers that you've been able to join the marketplace and maybe some of their personal stories or things like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories. So we have 600 hackers on our platform, and you're very correct. It's kind of it is a marketplace. It's almost like the Uber of security, but at the same time, we are a platform, a software as a service platform. So it's kind of, there's always an elegant dance between are we a marketplace, are we a software as a service platform? We're kind of both. The interesting stories are 10 years ago it was illegal to hack, and even to this day when people ask me or others at HackerOne, what do you do? Well, we have hackers finding security vulnerabilities on systems. People are like, what? Isn't that illegal? And basically, HackerOne in the past really 6 to 7 years has been on a mission to show the world that there's great opportunities in having people that have great skills, that are good hackers, white-hat hackers, to be engaged through the platform to find vulnerabilities. But then you get those stories that kind of, when this happens, as a sales leader, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy is saying this. But there's the story of a great hacker called Tommy. Tommy today is a $1 million hacker on our platform. So he got paid $1 million on HackerOne finding vulnerabilities. As a matter of fact, this morning, he got a job offer to join Wells Fargo full-time in their security team.
Oh, interesting.
But the story is that 10 years ago, he was literally arrested by the FBI for trying to hack into a computer system. So he went to federal prison 10 years ago. But the guy is just gifted in finding security vulnerabilities. He wants to help the world and do good, but 10 years ago, hacking was illegal. So those are great stories just to show how the world is changing, and our mission is just to make the world hacker a good word, so that you don't have to say white hat or black hat every other day. So that's a great story.
That's super interesting.
I don't know how old he is. I think he's less than 25 years old. So 25, $1 million on HackerOne, got a job full time for Wells Fargo, and he's finding serious vulnerabilities on very large companies that probably would have been breached if if he hadn't hacked on them.
Right.
So.
There's a Netflix special to be had there, from prison to $1 million hacker bounty.
Yeah, there's a Bloomberg video on him actually, just on
really?
that.
I'll have to check that out. That's interesting. Now he works for Wells Fargo. So yeah, that is interesting how in 10 years the world can change so much from being in prison to being a highly sought after recruit.
Yeah, we launched in the past 5 years a few exercises with the government. So we did Hack the Pentagon, kind of continuous challenge over the past couple of years. So even the Pentagon is asking hackers to hack the government to find security vulnerabilities. And that's when the government has hundreds of thousands of security specialists at the government. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I'd ask for more detail on how they hacked the Pentagon, but something tells me you won't answer that question.
Well, it's a public program. I'll send you an article on it if you want. We are signing up 600 new hackers every day, so you may be a future hacker on our platform.
I don't know about that.
Who knows?
We'll see.
Yes.
Maybe that'll be my 10-year story. I'll become from podcast host to hacker.
Yes, why not?
What would be your recommendation for sales folks in terms of what skill they should focus on in 2020?
I guess the number one skill is just to always have a nose for what is the business problem you're trying to address. When I think about all those Q4 deals that my team is trying to close today, I think the number one differentiator between closing deals versus not is realizing how are we impacting those businesses in a positive way, not the tactical side, but kind of the business outcome. So I think if people can just continue to focus on understanding, what is the business outcome those companies are seeking through your services or your platform, I think a lot more salespeople would be very successful. So business outcome is kind of my skill recommendation for ICs. And then for sales leaders, I would just, if you can combine hiring the right people, sales leaders hiring great frontline managers who are then hiring right ICs, and then combining them with being data-driven and systematizing their sales process, hiring the right people, and then culture, I guess, is probably the three things I would keep in mind. Yeah.
The Holy Trinity from Marjorie.
The Holy Trinity, that's for sure. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Well, last question we like to ask most people. How would you define sales in one word?
Execution.
Execution. Yeah. No hesitation with execution.
Yeah. I think, sales is just all about making it happen. Yeah. So execution is the one word, if I have only one. Yes.
Put perfectly. Well, Marjorie, thank you for joining us. You delivered, and this was fantastic.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.